Hello, nerds. This is your buddy Yogi. In this episode, we're going to look at the most interesting science news stories from the field of biology. Some interesting bones got found in Madagascar that challenge a lot of what we thought we knew about prehistoric mammals. And the foramen are huge. Plus, murder hornets are here. Or maybe they're not. And they're super dangerous. Or maybe they're not. Listen, I don't know who to trust, so we have a bee nerd here who's going to tell us about it. And we're going to talk about why you shouldn't trust anything that claims to be science if you see it in a video on the internet. No, wait. Let's get into our first story. A nearly complete skeleton of Adalatherium, a cat-sized prehistoric mammal, was discovered in Madagascar. Adalatherium, which sounds like a street drug I bought at a rave in 2002, literally translates to crazy beast. And it is in fact pretty crazy because the dating on the fossil puts it at more than 66 million years old, which would mean that it was around before the extinction event which ended the Cretaceous period and killed off the dinosaurs. Current accepted scientific theory is that at this point in time, mammals were no larger than a mouse. This discovery is definitely leading the scientific community to challenge the details of the biological timeline as we know it. For today's feature story, we take you to our senior apiology correspondent, King B. King?
Hey everybody, it's King B here with your Hornet Minute. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Asian giant hornet, or the murder hornet, as you may have heard recently in the news. This thing is getting such attention, not because it just got here, but because the life cycle of the Asian hornet begins now in terms of coming out of its hive and foraging for food. I remember catching this video almost 10 years ago on YouTube, impressed by how these things just ravage beehives, but now they're here in North America. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about how we should react. Should we be worried? And what's being done to prevent this invasive species from ultimately decimating the agriculture industry in the United States. And the problem is that they love to eat thousands and thousands of honeybees, and you can see here some European honeybees tending to their hive. They are filling these cells with honey, or they're laying eggs to grow larvae, and it is these bees that are threatened most by the Asian giant hornet, or the murder hornet. In Japan, Japanese honeybees have evolved along with the murder hornet and have techniques by which they can defend themselves against it. They create this ball of bees that surrounds these hornets, and they literally cook them by vibrating. The bees can tolerate 1 or 2 degrees Celsius more for their body heat than the hornets can, so they make this precise little temperature oven that they surround this hornet in order to literally cook this hornet. It's a very concerted effort. It would be nice if our honeybees could do such a thing, but they just don't have the behavioral techniques to do it. They have not evolved along with these hornets and are in great danger. What should you do if you encounter a murder hornet? You should probably run. Take note of it. Don't try and kill it. The problem with these things is that they're so big and their stingers are long enough that even if you're wearing a protective bee suit, they can pierce right through it. So what should you do if you see one? Well, let's leave it to the professionals. The Department of Environmental Conservation in Washington has been setting up traps in order to try and catch and stop the spread of the murder hornet. So just whatever you do, don't try and kill one yourself. If you spot one, move away quickly, go inside and call your local representatives, contact the DEC in the state that you're in, and let people know that you've seen sightings. If we can try and nip this in the bud, we can save the future of agriculture in our country. And finally, there might be some hope down the line that our very local and very common praying mantis loves, apparently, to eat the brains of these murder hornets, or at least is fully capable of doing so. So I encourage you to go online and buy some praying mantis nests, hang them in your yard, and hopefully some of them stick around. And perhaps, if we're lucky, there are some predators in the United States and Canada and Mexico that can act against these murder hornets if they do tend to spread. So that is all from me. Avoid the hornets, and back to you, Yogi.
Thanks for that report, King B. Coronavirus is impacting humanity like no disease has for 100 years, probably more, and information about it is flying from every source you can think of, and much of it is unreliable and unscientific. This past week, a bullshit conspiracy theory video on the internet did serious damage to our overall intellect as a species. In general, I've been trying not to make too much commentary about coronavirus because, again, so much information is unreliable. But I feel it's my responsibility to take this opportunity to talk about how scientific research works and why, when it's done right, science is so trustworthy. So you have a scientist, and they do experiments and they document them. And then they struggle through peer review in order to get their work published. If a scientist actually gets their work published, then other people are going to do three things. The first thing that other scientists will do is try to replicate your experiment, and if they don't get the same results, it's a red flag. The second thing is to do a slightly different experiment to see if the results make sense together, and maybe the one thing that they changed is the reason that they're not. The third thing is that some scientists will aggregate the results of lots of different studies that have been done around the world over the years to draw stronger conclusions. Let's consider the example of vitamin D and its relationship with coronavirus. Vitamin D is actually a collection of vitamins, specifically D2 and D3, and technically they're more of a hormone than they are of a vitamin. They help the body absorb essential minerals like calcium and magnesium. Vitamin D is considered important for doing everything from boosting your immune system to boosting your attitude. Vitamin D can be generated by the body when it's exposed to sunlight, and that's one reason why a lot of people recommend taking a supplement, especially in the winter when you don't see the sun as much, to battle things like seasonal affective disorder. There are lots of studies being published right now about vitamin D. Some say that people with higher levels are safer from infection. Others say that the people with the worst complications have very low levels. More and more of these studies are seemingly agreeing and showing trends. Considering how cheap it is, it's hard to argue why you shouldn't be taking a supplement. The point here is that science is messy when it's new, and sadly, people seem to be impatient and doubt the science if their instant gratification isn't satisfied. But over time, repeated results build confidence, and we're starting to see that here. So this bullshit conspiracy theory video focuses on the work of a disgraced scientist whose one piece of published work was found to be inconsistent when other people tried to duplicate it. And later, it was found to be fraudulent. Now, that alone doesn't make her a bad person, but when this BCS TV, that's bullshit conspiracy theory video, when they put her on a pedestal as one of the greatest scientists of all time, and later say things like, wearing a mask puts you at greater risk of contracting coronavirus, and this is all a plot to get us to take vaccines and have our minds controlled and make money off of us, then I'm pretty confident that she's not one of the greatest scientists of all time, and that we shouldn't trust this video. Now, some relatively smart people have said to me things like, but Yogi, this flashy piece of overproduced propaganda video really makes you think. And I say to them, no. Adalatherium, this street drug I tried at a rave in 2002, that makes you think. That does it for us for today. I'm Yogi Revin, and don't believe everything you see in some internet video. Except this one.